All right, back to yesterday's United Nations General Assembly. Yesterday, the Secret Service said it dismantled a hidden telecom network near the UN headquarters with a power to cripple cell towers and even cut off the 911 service while all the world leaders were gathered there in New York. More than 300 SIM servers were found tucked away in an apartment and a storage space. Also, there were over 100,000 SIM cards, many of them already active and ready to deploy. All of this found about 35 miles of the UN nations in Midtown Manhattan. Let's try to understand this a little bit more, all that's involved with this. Kennesaw State computer science professor Andy Green joining us now. Professor Green, welcome to the show.
Thank you, glad to be here.
Now, in very simple terms, what exactly is a SIM server, and why would someone use hundreds of them all together?
So a SIM server is a collection of what we call SIM cards, which are what make our phones work on any cellular network. Criminals will collect these cards into what we call a SIM farm for the purposes that the Secret Service outlined yesterday, and they can be used for any number of things, as the Secret Service outlined. Illicit communications, sending messages, and they will actually rent these farms out to other organizations for their illicit purposes. So depending on what the criminal outfit wants to use it for, it can be any number of purposes that these farms can be used for. They are actually set up around the globe by criminal organizations, and so the fact that the Secret Service actually found SIM farms in New York City is not that surprising to me or anybody who's in the field. This is not in and of itself an unusual announcement from the Secret Service.
You said there's any number of things that it could be used for. Besides shutting down 911 calls, could it be used to listen in to something? What else could it be used for?
So criminals like to hide their communications, not surprisingly, from law enforcement agencies around the world. The Secret Service's announcement I found was a bit, I thought it was a bit fear-mongering in the fact that, yes, theoretically, SIM farms could be used to flood networks with SMS messages, could be used to shut down cellular networks. But by and large, that's not what criminal outfits will use these networks for. They will use them to hide themselves from law enforcement agencies. They want to keep their communications away from these agencies who are looking to investigate what kind of criminal operations they are engaged in. As the Secret Service said, they are very early in their investigative phase, and they are going through and doing forensic investigations on each and every one of these SIM cards. Now, this is not to downplay the tremendous investigative work that the Secret Service and their partners have done to get to this point. But at this point in time, as the Secret Service said in their release yesterday, they don't know what they don't know at this point in time. And so, yes, theoretically, a lot of bad things could be done with this network, but typically that's not the case with SIM farms. They're used by criminals to hide their presence, to engage in criminal activities, to communicate with themselves, to avoid the gaze of law enforcement agencies around the globe.
Okay, so Professor Greens, if something were set up like that here in Metro Atlanta, what are the signs that we might see? You said it's hidden. Would we see any signs from this?
Not necessarily. These criminals want to stay below the radar. Like I said, they want to avoid detection and notice by law enforcement agencies. They want to send their messages to their partners within their criminal organizations below the radar, again, to avoid detection while still being able to effectively communicate with their partners within their criminal enterprises and do so undetected. That's the entire point of these server farms globally, not just here, but around the world.
Yeah, and how would you detect that? How did they, I guess you weren't there obviously, but how did they find this? How do you find something like this?
Well, that's where the Secret Service and their law enforcement partners have investigative techniques that they don't disclose to the public. And so you and I don't know about their specific investigative techniques, but it does involve some hard work, some technical aspects that they don't disclose to the public that leads them to being able to find the physical location of where these farms are located through various means that they don't disclose to the public. I could take a wild guess, but it would be an educated guess, but it would just be a guess. But there are a number of ways that they could go about doing what they did that led them to the point where they were yesterday.
So I got 20 seconds left. What you're telling me is, as just a regular consumer, I can't really protect myself from this, right?
There's really nothing to protect yourself from here.
Okay.
If threat actors wanted to use these server farms to disrupt communications, it's really up to the telecom providers to build protections in place to counter the threat, the potential threat that these server farms could wreak on their cellular networks. It's nothing that you and I can do to handle this. It's up to the cellular providers to build these protections in place.
Gotcha. All right, Professor Andy Green, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for the insight.